Welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Brandon, and today we're going to be looking at Mob Psycho. This one's going to be a little bit different than some of our previous ones. For this one, we're not running a true level 1 combo. And we're going to look at that when we get there. But we're going to lead that into the Reagan level 3. But I just want to kind of preview that initially. It's not running a true level 1 combo, so how you play the deck is going to be a little different. With that, we're going to start right in, looking at Reagan Empathy. When placed on stage, you can deny a trait from one of your opponent's characters. It's an interesting, nice side effect for the card, for why you would play the card in the deck, which is the pay 3 stock swap. Being able to kind of just force that decompression. It's worth at least a 1 of run in any deck. Next up, we have Reagan Life Advice. This is the bounce effect, being able to bounce a character to memory, put it back on stage. So kind of trying to negate some of those soul walls, negate other effects that are lasting through your turn. It is also a drop searcher. Pay 1, discard 1, search for Esper, Spirit, or Master trait. Mob Psycho has a variety of traits in it, and it becomes relevant. Reagan is typically master trait, so this will be able to search out Reagans as well as Espers, which is your mob cards. We don't run a whole lot of spirits in this deck, so you don't necessarily worry about that trait, but Esper and Master are the 2 main traits of this deck. Because as we move into the next card, Tsubomi, Childhood Memories, this one has neither of those traits. This is the card that doesn't play nice with the rest of the deck. However, it is a climax swapper, so you're able to try to swap for your climax at the end game. You're also able to, when this card attacks, if the damage is canceled, goes to stock. So it's secondary effect, building up stock, also pretty helpful in this deck. So it was worth putting in despite it being off-traded from everything else. Takeuchi, on play, discard a card, reveal the top card, and salvage X equaling the level of the card revealed or lower. It's nice to be able to hand fix with this card, help be able to get the cards you need and want based off of the reveal. So it can help get you into the cards you need. Next up, we have Mob. His full name. This is the Brainstormer of the deck. This is arguably one of the more important cards of the deck. Essentially, when you're going to get this, you're going to get this on field, and it's going to be on field all game. So all of your other Reagan cards get the trait Esper in it. So, cool. We're trying to help make things more traded. At the beginning of Climax phase, choose a character that gets 500 power until end of turn. So you're able to power pump every turn, which is helpful for getting reverses. And then you have a Salvage Brainstorm. Awesome. Fantastic. The power comes in more often than you'd expect. Reagan having Espers, very nice, as well as just the Salvage Brainstorm all around, and there's cards that tie in with Mob as well. Next up we have Mob Part-Time Job. Put 1 card from your hand into your clock, and if you do, you can search your deck for the explosion counter, and gets 1,000 power until end of turn. So this is very similar to Chloe from Slime, except you are clocking yourself instead of discarding a character. You do need to do that in order to gain the 1,000 power, but at the same time, explosion counter is going to be essential for our pretend level 1 combo. So clocking yourself to get it is important. This also takes the place of the Ricky in this deck. We're not going to be running the Ricky. Instead, if we need to clock ourselves to another level, we can use this. And explosion counter is a little bit more helpful in this deck than it is in others, so you're getting a card that you're already going to want anyway. As we round off the last of our level 0s, we have Mob Club Activities. If this card is in memory, you get Muscles. Yay, another pointless trait for this deck. But you can, when this card becomes reversed, pay 1, put it into memory. This card's only in here for that memory compression opportunity, even a little build up over time. So we jump into our level 1. So we start off with Mob Puppy Love. This is our pretend level 1 combo. This card gains experience if you have level 2 or higher in your level zone. And if you have the explosion counter in memory, it becomes a Blind Stalker. So a 5/5 Blind Stalker, while not the most ideal level 1 combo, building up that stock becomes pretty essential for later stages of the game, and with some of the tools you have to be able to bring this on field and relatively ease of bringing this on field, as well as a little bit of power here and there, you're able to take advantage of this. Next up, we have Reagan calling for reinforcements. If you have the Brainstormer in the backfield, it gains 2,000 power, so it becomes a 106k, and you can discard a card to put a cost 0 mob on any position of your stage. So you could choose the Brainstormer in the back row, you could choose the Blind Stalker from the previous card. So this allows you to be able to get that and get it moving quickly, as well as consistently. This is a really good consistency piece. I really equate this piece to the Demon Lord Ramorous card from Slime, but instead of paying a stock, you're discarding a card for a very similar effect. Here's the explosion counter. Look at top 4 from the deck, choose one Esper, Master, or Muscles character. So Esper or Master. Put it into your hand, put the rest in the waiting room, put this card into memory or underneath the 2/1 assist as a marker. Especially early stages, you need the one in memory for the blind stocking event. But as you go, you may find that you would want underneath as a marker later. Definitely a possibility. It's a nice way to cheese into it as you hit into level 3 to make sure you have 4 cards underneath that. Typically, it's going to go to memory. Next up, we have our 102k backup, Teruyuki on a rescue mission. Also has the Esper trait, so this is obtainable through the other means as well. 2k backup, going to help get reverses on your opponent's turn, even as early as level 1 to get some more blind stock in to help propel you forward. Now we jump into our level 2s. Mob, gratitude towards his master. All other level 3 Reagan climax combo. Gain 500 power and hexproof with this card being on field. It also assists level 3s by 2k power, very important. And also combos with the level 3 climax combo. You can choose one of the Reagans in the front row and grant it power. And great performance. You will grant that ability until you're into your opponent's next turn. On top of all of that, you need to have 4 markers underneath that card to be able to do that. To get the markers, when your other blue or Esper character becomes reverse in battle, if there are 3 or less markers under this card, put that character card face down underneath as a marker. Prior to that, you have either blue or Esper. Well, if you have the Brainstormer, Reagan now is an Esper, so he can stack underneath there too. So now you can get characters under that relatively quickly, as well as using the explosion counter to be able to slide under there too. You're able to get 4 more markers underneath it. It is worthy to note that when your other character becomes reversed, it must become a marker underneath this card. You don't get the option of choosing that until there are 4 markers underneath. Then you don't. That's when that effect ends, is when there are 4 markers underneath that card. So it will continue to build up to a point naturally, assuming that you lose board. So as we jump into level 3, we have Show Inspection. It is a early play with 4 more Esper, so you're able to play him. He is also an Esper, so if he gets reversed, he can go underneath as a marker. So you're not too worried about power as much, which is a good thing because the next ability, getting 1,000 power for each of your opponent's backstage characters, is kind of weird. So you're giving your opponent that kind of control to be able to adjust your power level accordingly. Is a little bit different, but you're not too worried about it because if he does become reversed, you get a marker. The card also has discard a card for stock healing, so you're able to take a card from clock into stock. So you get to heal, and it's not costing you as much stock, which is great. And it has the added benefit of if you reverse a level 2 or higher opponent, you can also blind stock. You're probably not going to be doing that very often with this card. It's more of a, if it happens, nice. If it doesn't, okay. It kind of plays into the blind stocking game that you already have, or you're getting more and more opportunities to try and blind stock. So that way you have the stock necessary for the end game. Another way of doing that as well is through Petite Reagan. This has the early play condition of 2 or less climaxes in Waiting Room. When placed on stage, you may choose a character in Clock and put it in the bottom of your deck. What's really important about this card specifically, too, not only are you healing on early play, but you can also rest if you don't have any other characters on field that are rested at the beginning of Encore step. So it's a good way to be able to try to preserve board if you're feeling like you're losing board too much. Then we hit our level 3 combo. This card gets 1500 power for each of your other Esper or Master characters in your backstage. So if you have the 2/1 assist and the Brainstormer, 3k additionally on this card. When this card is frontal attacked, you can surveil. Look at the top card of your deck, keep it on top or put it in Waiting Room. When the climax is placed on stage, you're then able to pay 1, discard 1, deal damage based off the number of markers underneath the back row 2/1 assist. In most cases, it'll be 4. If you need to go for the great performance route, you can, which is a little bit more on that kind of try to be more defensive side. You're trying to force all your opponent to face off against the one card in the middle. So that way you're essentially, when you're surveilling, you're trying to pull those climaxes to the top to be able to cancel more damage, so that way you can survive another turn. You could also choose to when you're dealing a damage, you can deal X damage to your opponent, X being the number of markers underneath that card. So you could be dealing 3, 2, 1, depending on how many markers got put underneath that card. If you wanted to, you could try to exceed that maximum by using the explosion counter to put additional markers underneath it. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it very often. You would need to be in some very interesting game states for that to happen, or to be worthwhile. The big thing is going to be pay 1, discard a card from your hand. Discarding a card from hand is going to be probably the more trickier part at this stage of the game. The card doesn't draw it doesn't on play draw it into hand, so it can be very difficult to recover from if you're not paying close attention to it. Although both of these triggers in this deck can get you cards into hand, so if you do trigger, you can mitigate some of that cost. So as we look at the deck as a whole, I have laid out here the pricing for the deck, breaking down the prices from jktcg.com. So in total, this deck becomes $254.25, according to their current prices. Okay. So as we look at this deck overall, objectively, as we're trying to go to each level, level 1, you're trying to build stock. Essentially you're trying to get that stock early, so that way you can effectively play out your end game. As you get to level 2, you're early playing, you're healing, you're building mark. You're stalling the game out to get to level 3, and building markers at the same time. When you hit level 3, this is where things happen. This is where you are able to kind of finalize those decisions, whether you're burning for 4, whether you're great performance to attempt to survive another turn. If you do end up going that route, 4 markers underneath, 3 across the board, you're looking at, assuming your opponent has a full field, you're looking at attacking for 3 damage and 4 damage 3 times each, potentially, which can be interesting and can be difficult to overcome. We saw that a little bit with SAO, with Last Shot Xenon. The cost is a little bit cheaper on this end because you're paying for it earlier in the game. One of the things to watch out for as well, because Mob Psycho has markers, watch out for bounce effects. Are becoming more and more common. Realistically, that works in your favor for this case, as you're able to make your own decisions as to how many markers you want if you're playing into bounce effects, using the explosion counters. You can kind of finesse your way a little bit there with those. It seems to be a fun deck to play with, especially if you like that little bit more explosive top end. This is what I found to be fun, be able to synergize pretty well. So I hope you guys enjoy. Until then, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. We'll have gameplay of this deck specifically on Thursday. And then next week will be another Clock Talk. So until then, have a good one.